Hello again. My name is Daniel, and today's story is one that sat heavy in my chest from the moment I first read it. It's about a mother named Margaret, 46, who lives in a quiet lakeside town near Bend, Oregon, and the moment she made a choice that shattered something precious between her and her only daughter, Lily, who had just turned 19. Margaret had raised Lily to believe that betrayal, especially the kind that comes from infidelity, was one of the worst ways to wound someone. The pain of it she knew well. Her own marriage had crumbled under the weight of lies, and she'd sworn that her daughter would grow up understanding the weight of trust, the fragility of love. Lily had always been a thoughtful and careful girl, never drawn to dating or casual relationships, never one to rush into emotions. So when she finally shared that she was in a long-distance relationship with a boy named Caleb, someone she'd known online for almost 3 years, Margaret tried to be supportive. She'd even spoken to him a few times. He sounded kind, respectful, and whenever Lily spoke about him, her voice softened in a way Margaret had never heard before. In the second month of their relationship, Lily added Margaret's number to Caleb's contacts list. For emergencies, she said. The name she saved him under was Light of My Life. Margaret found it sweet, if a bit dramatic. But Lily was open about everything. There were no secrets between them. Or, at least, that's what Margaret believed. One afternoon, while Lily was in the kitchen baking banana bread, her phone chimed with a message on an app Margaret didn't recognize: Discord. "Can you see who that is?" Lily had asked casually, her hands covered in flour. Margaret picked up the phone, intending only to read the message aloud. But what she saw made her freeze. The sender's username was unfamiliar, nothing like Caleb or Light of My Life. And the message? It was affectionate, intimate. And what broke her the most was the reply from Lily. Just as affectionate, just as personal. Margaret felt her chest tighten, her hands began to tremble. She placed the phone down and walked out of the room without a word. A storm of old pain, betrayal, and protective rage rushed through her. Without asking questions, without thinking, she sent Caleb a message, warning him that Lily might be cheating. 15 minutes later, Lily came running into the living room. Her face was red and streaked with tears, and her voice cracked as she told Margaret that Caleb had broken up with her. He'd blocked her on everything. "What did you say?" Lily cried. Margaret, still convinced she was right, explained what she saw and what she did. She even scolded Lily, reminding her how she'd been raised better than this. But Lily, through quiet sobs, explained. That name on Discord? It was Caleb's gaming username. He always used Discord while he played, and they often switched between platforms depending on what they were doing. Then came the moment Margaret still hears in her sleep. Lily begging her to explain the mistake to Caleb, to fix what had been broken. But Margaret refused. She doubled down. "If he blocked you that fast," she said, "then maybe you weren't as innocent as you claim." Lily had locked herself in her room after that. The only sound coming from behind that door were quiet sobs and the rustle of tissues. "I loved him," she whispered once through the wood, "and now he's gone." Margaret sat alone in the dark that night. The house was too quiet, too still. Her phone buzzed again, this time with messages, not from Lily, but from a friend of her daughter's, someone who had made a brand new account just to send this message, just to avoid being blocked. "You're the one who broke them," the message read, "not Lily, you." They'd known each other for over 3 years. That love wasn't new. It had roots, and Margaret had yanked them out without a second thought. The realization settled over her like a slow, cruel fog. She had been so quick to judge, so sure she was protecting her daughter, that she forgot the simplest thing: trust. Trust in Lily. Trust that the girl she raised knew the difference between love and lies. Later, Margaret wrote online, trying to make sense of what she had done. "I messed up," she admitted. "I broke something I can't easily fix." And the truth is, no matter how many updates come after this, no matter how many apologies she offers, some cracks don't close clean. Some cracks we carry with us. The message came late at night from an anonymous account that had no profile picture, no history, nothing recognizable. At first, Margaret thought it was spam, but then she read the first line. "You don't know me from this account. I had to make a new one so you wouldn't find my real one. But you do know me. I'm Lily's best friend." The words struck like a chill down her spine. She kept reading, hands trembling on her phone. "I knew it was you the second I read what you wrote. Lily's been inconsolable. She hasn't eaten, hasn't spoken much, just cries. I've known her for years. I've known Caleb too. And I need to tell you something that you clearly don't understand. Your daughter was never the kind of girl who ran toward love. She was terrified of it. And that's because of you." Margaret paused, her heart tightening. Her fingers hovered above the screen, reluctant to continue. But she did. "You taught her that the world would betray her. You taught her that love was fragile and that people cheat when you let your guard down. And it stuck. Lily was always so careful, so cautious. Caleb was the first person she ever opened her heart to, and you shattered it." The message didn't stop there. "She would never cheat, never. I'm saying this as someone who knows her better than anyone. And Caleb? He's destroyed, absolutely wrecked. You didn't just damage their relationship, you detonated it. And all because you couldn't ask one question. One simple question." Margaret pressed her lips together, feeling the burn of shame creep into her cheeks. The message went on. "They've loved each other for over 3 years, not a few months. 3 years of slow, patient friendship that turned into something beautiful. You flattened all of that with one impulsive message. You have 1 day. 1 day. Fix it, or I will." Margaret didn't sleep that night. By morning, she could barely look at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen, her skin pale, and her daughter, her Lily, hadn't left her room. The silence in the house was unbearable. Later that afternoon, Margaret sat on the edge of Lily's bed. Her daughter didn't flinch, didn't pull away, but the sadness in her face was haunting. She looked so tired. Margaret tried to speak, and her voice cracked before she even finished the first sentence. "I was wrong," she said. "I was so wrong." Lily didn't say anything at first, just sat there, arms wrapped around her knees, looking out the window. When she finally turned to look at her mother, it wasn't with rage. It was something worse. Disappointment. Grief. "You didn't even ask," Lily whispered. "You didn't trust me." That was what broke Margaret. She cried, truly cried. "I'll fix it. I'll fix everything. I messaged Caleb and asked if he'd be willing to talk, just to hear us out. I told him I wanted to explain everything and apologize." Lily blinked through her tears. "Did he say yes?" "He's at work, but he said we can talk later tonight." That gave Lily a glimmer of hope, and it nearly shattered Margaret all over again. "I also wanted to tell you," she continued, "that I've decided to start therapy, real therapy, not just for this, but for everything. I want to ask if you'd come with me too, maybe later on, family sessions maybe." Lily nodded slowly. "Only if you go by yourself first." "I will," Margaret promised. She went on to explain what she had never told Lily before, how Lily's father had cheated, how he had died not long after she found out she was pregnant, how Margaret's world fell apart back then, and how she unknowingly raised her daughter in a house haunted by that betrayal. "I didn't know," she said, "but I see it now. I see how I passed that fear on to you." Lily didn't interrupt. She listened. That alone felt like a gift. "I'm not trying to make excuses," Margaret added, "but I do want you to know why I reacted the way I did. It wasn't right. I should have trusted you." She offered Lily the option to move out if she needed space, an apartment co-signed in her name, or even a trip to visit relatives across the state. But Lily refused. "I don't want distance," she said softly. "I want you to fix what you broke." Later that night, they sat across from each other, the laptop screen open between them. When Caleb answered the call, Margaret's heart sank. His face was pale and blotchy, his eyes red. He looked like someone who hadn't slept, someone who had been crying alone in the dark. His first words were barely above a whisper. "Where is she?" Margaret turned the screen toward Lily, and then the boy began to cry. When Caleb saw Lily on the screen, something inside him broke. His shoulders trembled, and he let out a choked sob as tears poured down his face. "I'm so sorry," he said to her, over and over again. Watching him crumble like that, watching my daughter's eyes fill up too, I felt like I might throw up. Not out of guilt alone, but because it was suddenly so real. I had done this. I had taken two young people in love and crushed something delicate between them, all because I refused to pause, to ask, to believe. When his breathing finally steadied, I spoke. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told him what I saw, what I assumed. I walked him through everything. The Discord username, the way it hit me, how I reacted without context. I didn't defend myself. I didn't offer excuses. There are no excuses big enough to excuse what I did. And, to their credit, both of them, they sat and listened. They didn't interrupt, they didn't yell, they gave me the space I never gave them. And that, more than anything, broke me again. They were more patient with me than I ever was with them. Caleb wiped his face and turned to Lily first. He apologized again, for not listening to her, for blocking her so quickly, for not trusting the person he'd come to love so deeply. Then, finally, he looked at me. His voice was calm but heavy with pain. "Thank you," he said, "for admitting it, for trying to make this right. But Margaret, you should have told me sooner. You should have asked her. Instead, you made it so much worse." I nodded, unable to say anything but, "I know." He reminded me, gently but firmly, that the only reason he had my phone number was for emergencies. Like if Lily had gotten into a car accident or something serious, not for something like this. He said from now on, that number would be used for emergencies only. Anything else, especially in their relationship, was off limits. He looked me straight in the eye. "I'm not going to tell Lily how to handle things with you. That's for her to decide. But I need you to know, I forgive you. This once, but if anything like this happens again, I won't be able to." I felt that deeply. The finality in his voice wasn't cruel, it was protective. Protective of Lily, and he was right to be. He continued, "I think therapy would help. For you, maybe for both of you if you're open to it, but I can't pretend I trust you blindly anymore. You might feel like my trust is broken, and yeah, it kind of is. That's going to take time." Then he said something I'll never forget. "You raised her to believe that cheating is wrong, that trust matters. She believed you. She even left her phone unlocked with you because she had nothing to hide. She trusted you completely. So why did you think so little of her? Why would her own mother assume the worst?" It was like someone had cut the air out of my lungs. I turned to look at Lily, and her face said it all. She wasn't angry, she didn't scream, but the betrayal in her eyes was unbearable. And still, I didn't cry, not because I didn't want to, but because this wasn't about me anymore. This was about her. Lily didn't have many words after that, just a few quiet sentences. "I don't hate you," she said, "but I don't feel like I can trust you, not the way I used to." She told me she was changing her passcode. She said things would be awkward between us for a while, that she wasn't going to cut contact, but I needed to stop trying to fix things with gifts or money. "I just want you to own what happened. That's all," she said. I agreed. I didn't argue. Every single word she spoke was fair. We sat in silence after that until Caleb quietly said he needed to go and signed off the call. Lily stood too. "I need to talk to him privately," she said, glancing at me, "about us." She paused before leaving the kitchen, her hand resting on the back of the chair for a moment. "Thank you," she whispered. "I hope things get better." And then she was gone. Now I'm sitting here in the darkened kitchen, the screen still open in front of me, my chest heavy with everything I didn't do when it mattered. I've never been more ashamed. But I've also never been more in awe of my daughter and her strength. She and Caleb, so much younger than me, showed more grace, patience, and restraint than I ever have. If I can't undo the damage, the least I can do is learn from it, and never, ever let it happen again. Even now, sitting with everything I've written, with everything I've said, something still doesn't sit right with me, and I imagine it doesn't sit right with others either. I can't quite find the word for the feeling. Maybe it's regret, maybe unease, maybe both. There's a weight in my chest that hasn't moved since the moment Caleb's face crumpled on that screen. Since Lily's voice cracked as she told me she didn't hate me, just couldn't trust me the same way anymore. When I go back and reread everything, when I retrace my own steps through this heartbreak I caused, I realize that what haunts me isn't just the mistake, it's how quickly I swung from certainty to shame. I believed I was doing the right thing, and then, almost overnight, I saw how wrong I'd been. It wasn't a slow awakening, it was a drop, a collapse. One moment I was convinced I was protecting my daughter, the next I was looking into her eyes and realizing I was the one she needed protecting from. That kind of turnaround, I know it feels sudden. If someone else had told me this story, had admitted to jumping to conclusions, tearing apart their daughter's first love, and then making a sweeping emotional pivot the next day, I might have felt like it was too convenient, too clean. But it wasn't clean. It isn't. It's jagged, and it still bleeds. And what makes it worse is something I said myself in an earlier moment of clarity, something that should have given me pause, but instead made things worse. I told Lily she needed to understand that anyone could hurt her, even someone like me. I thought it was a lesson in reality, but what it really was a confession, and a warning I should have given before, not after. Telling your child that even you, their mother, are capable of hurting them, it's not noble, it's not a lesson, it's a wound. And I realize now that saying it after I'd already done the damage didn't soften anything. It just showed her that I was more dangerous than she thought. I don't know if that makes me a terrible mother. Maybe it does. And now, all I can do is sit with that. But maybe some of you understand that feeling too. That moment when you realize you weren't the hero in your own story. You were the one who lit the match. The one who turned love into ash because you thought you were protecting someone. And maybe you also know how it feels when the people you hurt are still kind enough to give you a seat at the table, even after you knock the table over. It's humbling, it's gutting, but it's also hope. Quiet, uncertain hope. There's something I keep coming back to in all this. Not a comment, not a message, but a look. When Caleb said to me, "She trusted you with everything, even her phone. Why'd you think so little of her?" I looked at Lily, and what I saw there wasn't just sadness. It was something deeper. The kind of heartbreak you carry quietly, because making noise wouldn't help. The kind that turns a girl into someone older faster than she should have had to grow. And even then, she didn't raise her voice, not once. Neither did Caleb. They sat with me, they listened, they gave me more grace than I gave them. And that is what I carry now more than anything. Their maturity, their kindness, their disappointment. They handled everything with a level of emotional strength I should have modeled, but didn't. Lily still hasn't forgiven me, not fully. I don't expect her to. I don't even know if she ever will. And I've made peace with the fact that some wounds leave a mark even after they heal. She told me things will be awkward for a while, that she's changing her passcode, that she doesn't want gifts or money, just honesty and distance until trust can be rebuilt. That's what I'll give her. She left the kitchen quietly after the call, saying she needed to talk to Caleb in private. But before she stepped away, she turned back and softly said, "Thank you. I hope things get better." That hope, that's all I have now. And I don't know if I deserve it, but I'll hold on to it anyway, because that's what mothers do when they've broken something sacred. They hold on, they wait, and they hope that someday love finds a way back through the cracks they never meant to make. There were a few more comments I came across, comments from strangers who had read my story and somehow managed to see it clearer than I did while living through it. Some of them were painfully direct, others more compassionate, but nearly all of them pointed to the same truth. I had failed my daughter. One comment in particular cut deep. "Why would you assume the worst about someone who trusted you so completely?" it asked. Why would a mother be so quick to believe that her daughter was capable of deception, especially when she'd never given you a reason to doubt her? I didn't have an answer, not one that made sense, not one that didn't make me feel even smaller than I already did. Someone else wrote, "Your daughter gave you access to everything, her phone, her messages, her heart. She didn't lock anything away. And yet, the moment you saw something that didn't fit your expectations, you broke the trust she handed to you freely." That one made me pause and look across the room at Lily's empty chair. She wasn't home that afternoon. She'd gone for a walk with Caleb, trying to reconnect after everything I'd put between them. The silence in the house was different now. Not just quiet, but hollow. And it was true. Lily had given me no reason to think she would lie, no reason to think she was being unfaithful. But my own fears, my own scars, reached out and twisted reality into something darker. And I believed that darkness over my own daughter's light. Another reader mentioned something I hadn't fully admitted to myself, that the swiftness with which I went from righteous certainty to desperate regret felt unnatural, too fast. Like I had snapped awake from a dream but was still groggy with denial. They were right, of course. The swing was sharp, and even though my heart turned the moment I saw her crying, the truth is, it shouldn't have taken that much. Someone else reflected on a line I had written about needing Lily to know I was capable of hurting her. That comment made them uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable too, in hindsight. What I'd thought of as honesty, this grim kind of motherly wisdom, had come too late. And worse, it wasn't comforting. It was a warning issued after the damage was done. "I need her to know I can hurt her," I had written. But she already knew. She learned it the moment Caleb blocked her without a word. The moment she realized her mother didn't trust her enough to ask a simple question. The moment I chose suspicion over love. No mother should ever have to teach that lesson. I kept scrolling through the feedback, quietly letting each sentence settle like weight on my chest. One person said that Lily's calm reaction wasn't a sign of weakness, but of strength. That holding back anger, choosing sadness over rage, was sometimes the loudest form of heartbreak. I believe that now. I've never seen my daughter more silent than she was after the video call, and I've never felt more undeserving of her forgiveness. There was one comment from someone who shared a story of their own, a mother who had misjudged her child, only to realize too late the cracks she'd carved into their bond. "It never goes back to how it was," they wrote. "But if you're lucky, it becomes something new. Something harder, maybe, but honest." I don't know if that's what we're building now, something new. But I hope so. I offered to go to therapy. I even mentioned family counseling. Lily agreed, but only if I started on my own first. She hasn't said much since. But she doesn't need to. Her actions speak louder. The changed passcode. The gentle but firm boundaries. The way she looks at me now, like I'm someone she's still trying to believe in. It hurts. It should hurt. Later that day, she came home and quietly said she'd be having dinner at Caleb's. She didn't linger, didn't ask me to wait up. Before she left, she paused at the door and said, "Don't stay up worrying. I'm okay." I nodded. I didn't say anything, because even now, I'm still learning that sometimes the best thing I can do for her is to just listen and let her heal, however long it takes. To end this quietly, I want to share something that feels a little bittersweet. Lily decided she's going to stay here for now, but we both agreed that some space might still help. So she and Caleb are planning to find a small place nearby, just something to call their own while they rebuild. I offered to help, of course, but she gently declined. Her words were kind but clear. This time, I need to stand on my own feet. The past few weeks have drained her, emotionally and mentally, and though I want her close, I understand the need for distance. She still shares updates with me, small things, like how she and Caleb took the canoe out or what they cooked for dinner. I treasure every message, even the short ones. I showed her a few messages people had sent me, comments from strangers who reminded me what I'd forgotten, how fragile trust is. How sacred it can be when a child still chooses to love you after everything. She smiled faintly when she read them. "At least some people get it," she said. "I don't know if I've earned a full second chance, but I know I've been given the smallest start, and I will hold that with both hands, carefully." Thank you for listening. Stories like this may seem distant or dramatized, but they echo a reality many families face, especially when trust, trauma, and emotional wounds go unspoken. If you're a parent carrying pain from your past, remember that healing yourself is just as important as protecting your child. Unprocessed trauma can unknowingly be passed down as control, suspicion, or fear, even when it comes from love. If you're the child in this story, someone who's had their voice silenced or mistrusted, know that you deserve to be heard without proving your innocence. Your feelings are valid, and so are your boundaries. Communication is critical in all relationships, especially between parents and children. When something feels off, ask before assuming. Pause before reacting. And when mistakes are made, and they will be, them without defensiveness. Therapy, whether individual or family, isn't a sign of weakness. It's a tool for rebuilding when the walls have cracked. If someone you love has hurt you but is showing a willingness to grow, protect your peace, but don't be afraid to watch their actions more than their words. Trust may not be rebuilt overnight, but with time, honesty, and humility, even the deepest cuts can start to mend. Thank you for listening.